us now as independent consultant, Philippe Espinasse. He is the author of IPO, A Global Guide. I guess what we've been talking about, Philippe, here is a bit of a misrepresentation, because we had two massive IPOs last year. We distort comparisons, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, this year's a bit different. Well, we've had the IPO of Glencore, obviously, earlier in the year, but that had a primary listing in London. It was $10 billion US, and it's actually mostly trading in London when you look at the numbers. Then the second largest IPO was the IPO of Prada in the early summer, which was $2.4 billion. But if Chow Tai Fook manages to come to market before the end of the year, and given the sort of size that they're mentioning, it could become the second largest offering in Hong Kong.
Right. Well, you know, we're rushing towards the end of the year, and we've got a lot of companies in the pipeline. I think the Hong Kong Stock Exchange is allowing more time now to actually go through all the papers and whatever the applications. Why the rush now?
Well, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange takes about 10 to 12 weeks at the moment to review applications. I think there's a mad rush just because of two factors. First of all, people want to use the latest financials, and if they don't do that, they'll have to wait for the year-end numbers before they come to market in 2012. And second, Chinese New Year comes in early this year, 23rd of January. So if they don't come to market now, then it pushes back transactions probably to February.
All right, when we look at this, we can look at Chow Tai Fook in particular. I mean, there are headwinds in place here. I mean, why list when we've got right now, markets which have been falling? We're in the doldrums to some extent. If they waited, surely they could get a better deal out of this. And what about, the lack of retail investors out there as well?
Yeah, that's certainly going to be an issue. I mean, retail investors haven't really come into IPOs at all. We have these clawback triggers in Hong Kong whereby the size of the retail offering increases in relation to demand. Now, these haven't been triggered at all this year, so I don't think retail demand is going to be there. PCCW is in the market with the First Business Trust at the moment. Retail investors are reportedly not really planning into that either. So that's going to be an issue. And another issue, I think, is going to be valuation. It looks like the valuation that's been muted for Chow Tai Fook is 18 to 25. 2013.
That's extraordinary. How would that compare? I mean, because this is a big company. I mean, it's got thousands of stores in mainland China, hasn't it? And
there were 1,500 stores, yes.
And when we look at it, how does it trade compared to, let's say, the luxury goods brands in Europe, for instance?
Well, it's significantly more than, for example, Tiffany, which trades on about 16 times. Like Bulgari is on 29 times. So that's pretty much what they're looking at the moment. But if you look at local jewelry stores that are listed in Hong Kong, Luk Fook and Shao Sang Sang, these are more on 10 to 11 times 2013.
So they really think they deserve a premium on this?
So I think, it's going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky, and the pricing is certainly very demanding.
Yeah, okay. It could, on the other hand, perhaps not raise quite as much money as they thought. Maybe they'll go for less.
Yeah,
or perhaps. And what about liquidity concerns here as well?
I mean, liquidity has really dropped significantly over the last few weeks. Some stocks have seen liquidity, lost 30–40% compared to what it was, less than a month ago. So I think that's an issue as well. I mean, obviously, we're coming back to Chow Tai Fook. There's always the possibility that the offering be smaller. I think it will be quite important for the book runners to also secure cornerstone investor demand. So by the time they come to market, they should have 40%, 50% of the offering already parked away with stable investors. And it's quite ironic they haven't announced any at the moment. There's still time. The book building doesn't start until the 28th of November. But Dr. Cheng, Yu-tung, who's the owner of Chow Tai Fook himself, has featured in a number of IPOs in Hong Kong as a cornerstone of choice, yes.
Then he decides not to get involved with some of these other ones here, including his own, I guess, but that's the reason why. I mean, he can't really be a cornerstone investor.
No, I don't think he can be in his own transaction,
course,
but I think...
in other companies, though, that's the thing, isn't it? He's disappeared off the scene, and there's not really exactly a vote of confidence, is it?
I think without cornerstone investors, I think that transaction probably will be much more difficult, yes.
Okay, just some of the other companies coming to market at the moment, Centro, Bav, Chang Seng Pharmaceuticals, Shanghai Fosun Pharmaceuticals as well.
Yeah, I mean, the number of companies that have announced that they would be coming to market, quite frankly, I think if they don't start book building by the end of the month or early December at the latest, then everything's going to be pushed back to next year. It's just going to be very difficult. The investors are closing their accounts, so it's really the last 2 weeks really now for people to do something.
Philippe, very quickly, prospects also, of course, for 2012. Will it be similar to 2011, or do you think people are going to be a bit more circumspect?
I think a lot of companies out there that actually need to raise money, so they'll have to do something. I think obviously macro events will continue to have a significant weight on what happens in the primary equity markets. But remember, this year globally, there's been more than a deal a day that was pulled, postponed, or otherwise cancelled altogether.
Yeah.
So I think certainly the first quarter and second quarter of next year should be very, very busy for IPOs, I suspect.
But the trend away from the more established markets in London and New York continues, yeah?
Oh yeah, definitely. Compared to 10 years ago, you had less than a quarter of transactions in the Asia-Pacific region. This year and last year it was about 65% in Asia-Pac. So I think that trend is not going to go away, definitely not.
Events in Europe don't exactly instill confidence,
Absolutely
do they?
not,
For the moment, Philippe. Thank you very much. Philippe Espinasse there.